And the panelists are Tor, who you already know, and Kim Wikan Barth, Head of Brand and Customer Experience at Gjensidige. Sissel Kristin Hoel, Innovation and Service Design at DeFi. And the author, or one of the authors, Ben Reason. A moderator is Lavrans Løvli, partner at Livework. And just want to inform you that there will be a discussion with you as the audience afterwards, and or as part of the panel debate. Please give me or Jannike, who disappeared, a sign, and we will give you the microphone. And please also say your name and where you're from before your comments or your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. And thank you for coming. The little drawing here is the foundation for the discussion. It's also the foundation for the book. It is the idea that in order to have impact with designing a service, you really need to understand where the customer comes from and what will create value for them. But you also need to design for the business. What are the things we are going to achieve in terms of business impact? And you need to design for the organization. How do you actually enable an organization to be able to deliver on this? And that's the foundation for our discussion as well. And I think what we've learned from our customers is that one problem is that people who deal with these things, they deal with them separately inside their own organization. The people that see customers every day don't get to speak to the business people who don't speak to the people who actually do the business as usual. Another issue we see is that when an organization wants to drive some kind of a change, they usually start on the bottom. They start with how can we make our organization more efficient, or what is our business ambition with this, and then they add customers. And what we're trying to offer in the book is an approach that has a more holistic integration of the customer and business and organizational point of view. So that's the basis of the discussion. We'd like everyone to participate. The rule set is you can speak both English and Norwegian, depends on what you prefer, and we will speak back to you in either, except for Ben. But I'd like to start out with a question to each of the panelists first. And if I can start with you, Tor, as director of the Center for Service Innovation, how on earth did a program coming out of the Norwegian School of Business think, hey, it's really important for this research that we include design in the research mix? What was the driver behind it? What kind of impact would you be looking for?
Oh, this is very simple. This is back to one of our research partners, AHO, Research Design School, was really, the prominent or the force in Norway in this topic. And the wonderful work that we're doing together with the Telenor, for example, or with the Postal and the DNB, and we just triggered that interest. I mean, this is a topic that we should be pursuing. So you're absolutely right. I don't think we would have come up with this idea at all. We were thinking about it ourselves, but it was the sheer effect, seeing the work that AHO and their researchers were doing together with these companies, and also the response they had within the companies, from top to bottom, their employees in between. And so that just opened up my eyes and see there's something here. I just don't get it, but there's something here that we need to explore. And so now, because of this work here, we have as one of the 4 research topics, it's called service design and customer experience together. And it's the largest research area we have in CSI. It's about 10, 15 researchers working on that, not 24/7, 365, but at least that's where they have their head and thinking and research there. And also the advisory board that we have, one of the prominent researchers there, Roland Rust, asked us to focus much more narrowly. So if you're going to be known internationally as a research center, you need to focus. And after some beer and some thinking and some pizza, we ended up with the following elevator pitch. We do insight-driven service design and innovation. So that is that's how strong it is. But again, that also increases the mandate that we need to bring it one step further into the business community, and that's where the money talks and high thinking walks.
Great, thanks. If I can ask you, Sissel. So Sissel is a senior advisor at DeFi, and you're just about to launch a program where you're bringing service design in as a vehicle to create improvements in the government sector.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the reasoning that took you to that place, that you think that this is actually going to make an impact on government?
Well, it's a curiosity in the public sector. That how can we approach these challenges in a new way? We did not use beer and pizza, I have to say.
We should try.
We should try. We should try. But actually, it's minister that was really curious about how we have seen that this works in some places. We have facts and numbers that say that this works. In the cancer, cancer from the brystkreftprojektet. So they want more examples, they want more numbers, more examples that this works. Can you help us? We give you DeFi an amount of money to stimulate the public sector to use this kind of methodology, service design, to see if it works better than the way we have worked before. It's not much money and it's not much time, but we've been challenged to, in 2 years, to make government, not the local government, but the state government, to get this project work within 2 years, and we need to have results, concrete results. So it's really fast. Jeg kan si det enklere på norsk. At det også ministeren som har bestemt seg for at vi må prøve å gjøre dette noe annerledes. Vi må forandre verden fortere. Rett og slett. Veldig mye skjer på kommunalt nivå, men nå vil vi på statlig nivå, også fordi det er enklere og med pengeoverføringer og sånn, gi DeFi penger for å stimulere offentlig sektor til å bruke tjenestedesign for å utvikle nye løsninger. Og målet er å få konkrete resultater, dokumenterte resultater i løpet av 2 år. Og det ser vi at det er veldig vanskelig, men det er stor interesse både i offentlig sektor, men også blant tjenestedesignerne i Norge til å være med på dette løftet, selv om det ikke er store penger i potten. 5 millioner først, 10 millioner andre året. Men det kan åpne opp et stort marked.
Og hva slags resultat vil gjøre ministeren så fornøyd at han etter de 2 årene sier dette her skal være del av alt vi gjør når det gjelder utvikling av statlige tjenester?
Jeg vet ikke om han er så ute etter de store resultatene. Han vil se om dette virker. Og jeg tror vi må bygge en portefølje av prosjekter som både har de store, hårete prosjektene, hvor vi kanskje ikke kan hente ut de største resultatene, men hvor vi kan vise hvordan denne metoden virker, men også noen mindre prosjekter hvor vi rett og slett kan gå inn og gjøre mer isolerte arbeid og hente ut litt større resultater på kortere tid. Men vi må prøve oss fram. Men vi må kunne dokumentere hele veien. Og det er viktig for oss. Vi har brukt tjenestedesign tidligere, og vi har prøvd alle metoder. Og som jeg hørte i London tidligere i måneden, there's no more funny money around. Nå må vi inn i der hvor pengene sitter tyngre.
Takk. Hvis jeg får slenge det over til Kim. Nå har vi sett det litt fra research-siden. Det er en interesse, men også et sterkt behov for faktisk å finne resultatene. Det er investering fra statlig side for å forstå hva er det som kan gjøre den store forskjellen. Som fagsjef for merkevare Gjensidige har jo du vært gjennom en prosess over mange år hvor dere har brukt servicedesign som ett av veldig mange virkemidler for å snu hele organisasjonen i en kundeorientert retning. Så det som er veldig interessant å høre fra deg er egentlig hvilke ting tror du gjorde størst forskjell?
Nei, det er jo sjeldent en ting som gjør den store forskjellen. Grunnen til at vi tidlig valgte å fokusere på servicedesign som ett av virkemidlene, det var at vi skulle kundeorientere oss. Og dette er jo da en industri som har brukt 200 år på å bevege seg vekk fra kunden, på å være produktorientert. Og gjennom en god strategisk øvelse så man at det å tilby generiske produkter i markedet på det viset vi har gjort over lang tid, og våre konkurrenter, det er ikke veldig konkurransefremmende for vårt vedkommende. Så vi tok et strategisk veivalg om kundeorientering. Og da skal du jo flytte folks mindset, du skal flytte en hel organisasjon 180 grader. Og det er en massiv øvelse, som selvfølgelig treffer absolutt alle aspekter av organisasjonen. Og det er et kjempepoeng. Folk snubler jo veldig og tror at man skal bare jobbe med de som er i siste ledd mot kunde. Og det funker jo aldri. For de forholder seg jo til alle leddene bakover i verdikjeden. Og du må kneppe på absolutt første startpunkt. Service design tvinger på en, hvis man gjør dette bra, tvinger på et kundefokus. Du slipper ikke unna det. Og det var den sentrale nøkkelen der. Den trengte vi. Og så tilbake til punktet her som dere er opptatt av, effekter. Det er jo vi også. Dette er jo finans, så vi er svært opptatt av effekter. Veldig ofte så har man et problemområde, og så iverksetter man en serie av tiltak. Og så kommer en direktør i etterkant gjerne og sier at dette er dritbra, men jeg vil gjerne ha the numbers. Og så sitter du der og sliter. Fordi at du har en sammenkobling av masse tiltak, og du kan ikke isolere ut dette av det. Og verden er nå en gang sånn at veldig ofte så er det kombinasjonen av mange tiltak som gir den ønskede effekten. Da er jeg mer opptatt av den ønskede effekten enn å isolere A, B og C-tiltakene i hvor stor andel de er påvirket. Men vi har gjort det, og vi har gjort det isolert til inbound og outbound på kundesenteret, hvor vi brukte service design som et av flere redskapene for å definere opp en sett av tiltak, og hvor vi i etterkant har målt effektene, som hvilket er kjempestore. Vi har dobblet salget per samtale på en periode av et par år. Vi ser en helt konkret og stor sammenheng mellom det å være i kontakt med oss og ha en positiv opplevelse, og om du er i selskapet et år etterpå. Uavhengig av hvor mange andre opplevelser du har hatt av oss. Vi greier å isolere ett punkt som var kjempebra. Og da ser vi at de kundene som i hvert fall har en god opplevelse, de blir værende mye lengre og legger igjen mer penger. Og det er jo, nå prater jeg jo på inn- og utpust, beklager det. Men det er jo business det handler om. Det kommer vi ikke unna. Og det er et kjempepoeng i samarbeidet som vi har hatt med Livework, at man kan gjerne komme med flotte løsninger, men de må ha en realisme i seg også. Man må ta inn over seg, og til å implementere noe koster lidelig mye. Det blir tatt opp i boken spesifikt, særlig knyttet til betalingsløsninger, som for oss i finans er en svær affære. Så hver gang Lavrans har lyst til å pirke bort i de, så får jeg helt hetta, for jeg vet at det er et kjempeløp. Og da være smart på hvordan du kan få ønsket effekt, men uten nødvendigvis å vrenge innsiden ut på absolutt alt i denne organisasjonen som de har brukt 50 år i legacy-systemer på å tilrettelegge for. Det gjør det ofte veldig mye enklere. Så ta det stegvis.
Thank you, Kim. I'd like to hand it over to the audience. And is there anyone who would like to pose us a question related to the book or to some of our wonderful panelists?
My name is Jane, and I'm an intern at Telenor. Here? Okay. And this is not a question to the book because I haven't read it yet, but what is the first step from going from a product-oriented company to a customer-centered company? What is the first step from changing it?
It's to set a firm ambition, but it has to touch realism. It can't be a big hairy goal that everyone feels you can't achieve. It has to have that sensibility in it. But set the ambition for the whole organization and point out, as I mentioned before, that this is a task for each and every one. there should be no area of the organization that stand untouched by this strategic change.
Tor.
I'd like to be the devil's advocate. We could use a hallelujah in this issue. But I think this is one of the areas the companies are struggling with. We see in the research we're doing, also with the companies together with the center, that there's not one vice president or CEO that doesn't say what Kim is saying, and it's all hallelujah. But when you listen to them, they're all saying customer centricity and customer experience and all the wonderful politically correct things. But when you observe their behavior, they're in a goods dominant logic. They're stuck in the manufacturing paradigm, they're stuck in the unit paradigm, they're stuck in pricing per unit paradigm. So what if I looked at Gjensidige as not as an insurance company, but something that provided me with comfort and a warm blanket? I want to subscribe for those services, but he will send me an invoice. So I'm buying one unit. So the whole mindset here, so what we're seeing is that many companies are talking customer centricity, but they're acting customer or product centricity. And that is a huge threshold that we need to pass through. And it's not only one company, but it's all companies. I haven't seen one company that's truly customer centric. But service design might get us there. That is my thing. This is why these guys here has a hope and has a future.
Government might be different though, because I guess you don't have products.
Nei, men det altså jeg tar norsk igjen. Men det helt overførbart. Alt som blir sagt her akkurat det samme I offentlig sektor. Finansieringsløsningene våre, det jo det kjempevanskelig. Det veldig vanskelig å samarbeide. Det ikke bare å bli enige om at nå skal vi sende penger på tvers. Det effektene. Hvor kommer effektene? Det kan være et liv etterpå, en generasjon kanskje etterpå kommer effektene. Hvor kommer effektene? Det hos dem som investerer dem, eller det et helt annet sted? Målstrukturer, dette veldig vanskelig, og også hvor vi ikke engang blir enige om hvem kunden. Det en kommune som kunden vår, eller det eleven? Det rådgiveren på kommunekontoret? Altså, vi kan sitte en halv dag og diskutere hvem brukeren fordi vi har lange tradisjoner med hvor langt ut I kjeden vi går når vi snakker om brukerne våre. Det innbyggeren, det kunden? Det å bli enige om det her, tenker jeg at tjenestedesign kan hjelpe oss med å snakke om hvem vi til for, hvem som blir utsatt for oss på sett og vis, og så må vi jobbe oss lagvis bakover med hva betyr dette I måten vi rigger våre løsninger på. Og vi kan si at man kan ikke velge offentlig sektor heller, men på sett og vis, du kan ikke velge å betale veiavgift til Sverige fordi det en bedre løsning. Men samtidig så det veldig mange løsninger vi har som doble over lang tid. Altså du har en digital løsning, og så sier vi siden ikke alle digitale, så har vi også en papirløsning. Men det jo fryktelig dyrt. Jo tidligere du klarer å få folk over på den digitale løsningen, jo mer penger sparer du. Og da vil du gjøre det så logisk, og så lett, og så godt, og så verdifullt for den borgeren som mulig. Derfor det også penger I det for oss, selvfølgelig.
If I can hand it over to Ben quickly, that's a very interesting little thing about who is the user, or citizen, or the council, or the pupil.
Who's the customer or the prisoner? The first thing was a joke that we had a purchase order from the Ford Motor Company for 1 unit of service design last year. The unit went quite a long, stretched quite a long way. And then we just going to remind Lavrans, I think it might be important to think of, we talk almost like goods dominant, service dominant, as if you just switch from one to the other. And surely there are steps. Remember, we had a kind of model that we haven't employed very often, that you need to kind of go through a transition of what service means to that organization. So if you start at one end where service is a pure cost that you kind of try and reduce, to the other end where service is what you sell, comfort blanket, and that there are different stages in between that might be staging posts on that journey, so you don't just think because otherwise it's too ambitious, I guess. And I heard a really interesting story, because I thought the other thing is customer centricity as a kind of, like Tora said, it's a sort of as a hallelujah. It's a bit of lip service. It's like saying what everyone says it, but they don't all behave it. And maybe it's too blah, maybe it's too kind of general, and you need a more specific understanding of what it means for your organization. So there's a guy we've been working with in London who spoke to Michael Lee, no, I'm getting him muddled up. Michael O'Leary, who runs Ryanair, who thought customer experience was a whole load of waste of time for quite a long time. He's an accountant, but recently has brought it to the company. But they have a very clear description. They say we will do everything for the customer until it threatens our price leadership position in the market. So I just think they have a clear strategy about what it means for them. It goes this far and then it stops, which is in a way much clearer than the customer. You know, they're kind of like, well, what does that mean? Which is sort of what you're saying about it being realistic, isn't it? It's like you need something where it's like, well, it fits in this way.
And it needs to be aligned with the business model.
Yeah. Which is what he's done, really.
And people tend to talk about customer experience always in the sense of a premium experience, which it really doesn't. It has to be precise, it has to be aligned with the brand and the basic business model, and then you're home free. It needs not be the premium experience, the dream experience. And to answer up your point, to your question, and Ben said it, you need to be patient, really. It takes time to change an organization. And you need to pick the low-hanging fruits so you can show results quickly. But for the overall change of a huge company, it takes time. You're changing people, you're changing the mindset of people, which takes time.
Any other questions from, or can we start back there and then go to the finance sector later? Please.
Hi, I'm Josina. I'm a designer.
Excuse me.
Hi, my name's Josina. I'm a designer and PhD student at Karlstad University, and I work at Experio Lab, a healthcare design research group in Sweden. So I have a question in the context of framing service design for business and some of the conversation around measurement, and I wanted to pick up on that. And I wonder, do you think there's a risk of losing kind of what design brings by measuring service design on business terms and some of the things that you mentioned around efficiency and effectiveness and the ways that we traditionally define those things? And I just think back to when I was first starting university and I was cooking a turkey for the first time, and I asked my mom how to do it, and she said, oh, you need to get it up to this temperature in the oven. And so I put in the thermometer, and I watched the temperature, and it got right. But I totally forgot to watch the whole turkey, and the whole turkey burned, but the temperature got right, because I measured that thing. So, and I wonder if you feel like, as you're orienting service design to business and to the kind of ways that business is thinking about measurement, do we risk doing the same thing and kind of minimizing what service design has to offer when we measure these things? And are there alternative ways of thinking about service design that get to that whole essence and the holistic notion that service design brings, rather than traditional business terms?
Can I do a quick one? I turned around, not looked at it as a threat, but what are the things that can really make a difference? What can create change that design can bring into the picture? And we know that it's very sought after, this, how can you measure it? But I think where we are at the moment, we're thinking there are other things that will make a bigger difference. Things that have to do with storytelling, making things simple and clear, because at least at the top levels in the organization, the stories are what's going to drive change. If you go a little bit further down, the measurement is more important. So I turned it around, not looked at it as a battle between what will be lost in trying to become more relevant. I think it's more of a matter of how do we employ the strengths where they can make a bigger change. Now you're looking at me very intensely.
No, I think it's a wonderful question, and thank you so much for bringing that up. Because it takes me back to some of the discussion we had when marketing was all about communication. That we had this analysis paralysis paradigm, and we just killed every creativity that came up, and it became very boring. I think this is part of a bigger discussion, because this is thinking about mentality and culture and the way you look at business and how value is created. And I'm one of the advocates who hate shareholders, even though I have a share of one or two myself. But I think the paradigm that managers is under, like the shareholder first paradigm, I think that's been destroying business, because that puts so much pressure on cutting costs. And there you have all the MBAs coming into play, because they know cost cutting and very little about value creation. But I sense now there's a lot of wonderful work coming out from research. They're documenting that the shareholder first doctrine has been ruining, or in fact they're using the word cremating value for shareholders. And now more and more they're advocating the customer first doctrine. And to me, that is just the change of lifeblood within the companies. It's a different way of thinking about value creation, the way you measure value creation, the way you look at how it's been value created. So I think that's where the hope is. Otherwise, if you leave it to the MBAs, I think you're in trouble. But this is where I'm hoping now that more and more CEOs are coming up from the rank of understanding the market. They're not coming from finance. They're not coming from accounting. They're not coming from human resources. They're definitely not lawyers. Because if you've got to keep the customer perspective, and that's where I think the customer first doctrine that I see now is just picking up speed more and more. Tons of stuff has been reported in Harvard Business Review, a lot of stuff in Journal of Marketing, in Journal of Strategic Management, just talking to the same thing here. And that's where, honestly, like last week there was one wonderful piece in The Economist using the word value cremation, but with the shareholder first doctrine. So that's where the thinking is. So I'm very optimistic. We see now that when we introduced just measuring customer satisfaction and how that has taken footment in companies now, we measure because we understand what drives customer satisfaction. We know that customer satisfaction is important for behavior. We know that it's important for business. And the same thing when we start documenting the effect of service design and design thinking. Because I want to include that, the way you approach problems and the way you work at cracking the problems. I think when we see the effect of that, we can start and I see my colleagues working on experimenting with stuff before they implement it or ask people to start working on it. If I may, we were doing some stuff with you guys on nudging.
Yep.
And that is just testing out initially with like a very controlled experiment. Does this design change have an impact on a certain behavior? And if we can do it small scale, and if the study is designed correctly, we can go full scale, and you still keep your job.
Yep.
Probably get a raise. And that's where we need to go. So combining the boring, quant, design-oriented approach to service design, or no, service research, and then taking it full scale over to people. This is where we should be going, and then go with it.
But
So
it has to be mentioned that we measure it. Because your question was, do we destroy it by measuring it? Of course not. The world we live in and how business is done, we measure effects. If we do not know the effect of an initiative, well, you have a problem. So you need to measure it to do the speech, to do the elevator pitch, to make change. You need to measure. Sorry.
Just quickly, it's the difference between whether you measure how long somebody took on a phone call or whether the customer got what they needed when they made the call. So it's what do you measure?
Exactly.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting, and Sissel, I'm thinking in government it's different because you don't have shareholders, you have politicians who I would imagine are very, very value-oriented, and then you have bureaucracy who needs to count and try to translate those values into practical impact. Does it work completely differently?
No, it doesn't. We still have a problem in the government sector too. Are we counting the right things? Are we counting activities or are we counting effects? And when do we know we are counting effects? And how do we measure effects? And right now we are working on really, really wicked problems. Altså frafallsproblematikk og utenforskap. It's not easy to measure that. But we have to find some pieces, bits and pieces that we can measure. Are we on the right track? Are we moving the right way? Are we talking about the same users? Are this way of working bringing us further? So we have to find other ways of measuring. And we have to, but the big thing is that do we work around the user in the right way? Does this bring us forward? This holistic way of working, instead of working in our silos, sectors, government, local bureaucracy. This is the way. Are we measuring? Are we going further, or are we measuring activities?
We have one question there and one question there. Oh, we have plenty of questions. Oh, comment. Comments are fine.
It's just being the devil's advocate on the metaphor. And so it's a question if you can make perfect turkey, but if no one wants to buy it because you can't show the evidence of it being perfect, then you still have a problem. So that's why I think we need to measure it.
Okay, so we have a question there and then over there.
I think that this one was
Yep.
first.
My name is Miriam Øyna, and I'm working in a startup called Vio. And my question to you is, because I understand that the main message here is that service designers need to understand business, and business developers need to understand design thinking and service design. So do you have any thoughts about how this should happen? How should we learn from each other?
That's a good question.
It's for you, Ben.
Is that for me? Oh, I don't have a very simple answer to that. I think it's a real. So my experience is that you have to practice it. So we find that once you get people in the room and you go through the motions, and that this is something you can do quite quickly. You can do a project in a day to get people together. Then suddenly people start to twig and realize, and start to create language that will translate between those areas. So I don't know if it's an answer, but try and get in the room together.
I think it's really important that we try not to talk about business and design, and that there are conflicting forces. First of all, because that kind of maintains that idea. Then there's a few things behind it, which is why do people from a business background think differently than people from a design background? And that's explainable. Because if in the business school you learn how to really analyze something to get to the right solution, but from a design perspective you're used to just throwing solutions at the problem until they fit. And that's what freaks people out when they try to work together. So I think we should spend more time figuring out how to get that process right, rather than trying to pose them as different opposing forces. But I think Tord has...
I think we're trying to accomplish that. We, together with AHO, we have Judith and Beate Lindqvist coming over to the Norwegian School of Economics every spring to teach our students on design thinking and service design. And I just see from a very, very nervous, freaking out, kind of outside the comfort zone, to really falling in love with these wonderful ladies. So apparently it really kicks in after a little while with boring economists and boring finance people. They really enjoy it, and it becomes a part of the mindset. And also the work we see AHO has been doing with Telenor, after some training in the service academy, it becomes a part of the DNA. And you change the way they approach it. I think it's overcomable. So my responsibility is to bring it into the curriculum, to the programs, and then also we're doing in the executive programs where we have like days just looking at service design for executives, and it flies nicely.
Så Sissel, dette jo en utfordring dere har fått blitt gitt.
Boring business eller boring bureaucracy, byråkrater. Det samme antageligvis, og så det vi opplever at det veldig mange nysgjerrige på tjenestedesign, og veldig mange synes det utrolig spennende å jobbe med tjenestedesignere. Og en helt annen måte å jobbe på. Ben, you were speaking about these underground workers not going on strike, and can you make them having fun and work so they don't go on strike? It's the same in Norway. Can you make this enthusiastic? Can you make this all these yellow post-its? But then it's not supposed to be just fun. It's not just to be like enthusiastic, and then you go back to your office and then you hit the reality and nothing happens. Yeah. How do you design yourself out of the process and still make change?
So it
That's
wasn't-
that's really difficult.
we weren't just making it fun for them, though. We were kind of asking them to get involved in designing their future job. So they basically, there was less surprise, there was more sense of ownership and participation and things like that.
I think that's important. In the work we do now, we are really engaged in both taking the holistic perspective of service design, but bringing in the endringsledelse, change management, and gevinstrealisering. Nå må du hjelpe meg, Lavrans. Hva skal jeg si?
I didn't hear the word.
Gevinstrealisering.
Value realization.
Value, yes. So that we make sure that all the managers are in here as well.
Yeah.
They bring on the changes so that the old processes won't bring back the new processes. So this is a whole spectrum. But we see that the business, the old traditional business consultants, we are a bit bored about them. We need this new way of including the workers, including the users, including everybody in the process, so that we make this holistic.
So, I mean, to the designers in the room, though, the very simple thing is, you know that toolkit you have where you go out and talk to end users and you find out what their lives are like? You can actually use that to talk to people in organizations and empathize with them as well. So I think the book was sort of based on going to our clients and actually trying to understand what their needs were. And it's the same thing.
Okay, thank you. I'm Lars Sekton. I come from the financial industry. And I think I have a question regarding old versus new industries. And when I look at the customer list of Livework, it's a very impressive list of old industries. Like I think Kim said, we're 200 years, we have distanced ourselves from the customers. And you see automobile industry, you see other industries that really are struggling today with reuniting with the customer interest in a true way. And every new industry, I mean, every new way of doing things, I mean, the point of departure is really the customer, the needs of the customer. I mean, that's where it starts. And then it seems that industry over time goes astray in a way that they depart from this real interest and gets more fixated on bottom line, on cost saving, on whatever, of course, product development, but they forget about the customer over time. Do you have any experience or any cases from new industries, and what is there to learn, and what may you tell people that are really starting up something so they don't forget about this very important aspect?
If I could ask Tor to make the first response to that, because I know you have thought a lot about this.
Well, I'm just trying to collect my one thought. I think it's an excellent question, but I became just pessimistic while you were talking. Because I think going back to Adam Smith in 17-something, he wrote a book, The Wealth of Nations. And I seem to remember a quote in there that it goes something like, it seems to be natural tendencies for companies to start out with the customers but end up with themselves. So I just wonder if that is like the law of gravity within companies, within business. As they grow and become successful, they become bureaucratic, start organizing for efficiency, looking for silos and all that stuff there, and neglecting organizing themselves for the customer. So this is this paradox of efficiency inside and effectiveness outside, and it seems to be the efficiency argument that dominates. And we start getting more and more professional management, it seems to be the cost side of it. The only positive view I have right now is, as opposed to the this customer first doctrine, I see now some wonderful research coming out of Harvard Business School, documenting that the upstream research or upstream innovations are less effective on value creation than on the downstream side of innovations. And that might change the perspective of managers that keeps the focus on the customers. And if we succeed in implementing design thinking as a tool, part of the toolbox for managers, that might be one way of securing, holding customers close to your heart. I just have one example. I'm not sure that I'm revealing anything, but Telenor was moving into a country where they bought a bank before they did anything with that bank, they had a management team in a seminar on design thinking and service academy, they call it. And they decided it's going to be a mobile bank, period. After 3 months, they had 80,000 new clients. It was ranked as the most popular bank in that country, because management were trained in design thinking. I think that is the approach in keeping, or a tool to keep the customer focus continuously, not as a one-shot phenomenon. So that is my only hope. Otherwise, we're stuck with Adam Smith and 17-something.
So we have some experience of working with startups, and when we knew, we wanted a case study that would sort of talk about service design. So we worked with this car club in London called Streetcar, which at the time was a completely new service, new category. People didn't know how to use it. And it was a very effective piece of work in that they became the fastest growing car club in Europe, and they sold to a big American competitor. And I guess the interesting thing is that we didn't really design the product, which is, you know, a car that you can rent by the hour. We designed all the bits about how do you get to it and round it and out the other side, feeling like that was a good experience and it was effective and easy and all those sorts of things, especially when it was something new that consumers hadn't experienced. So you had to kind of educate them and take them with you on a journey. And you see a lot of those kind of principles in especially digital services these days, where they've considered adoption and designed for adoption and things like that. So I get a feeling that a lot of that is second nature to a lot of sort of new industry companies now. Does that make sense?
Sissel?
Kanskje. Jeg bare tenker på at dette om det gammel, altså det mye gammel kultur i offentlig forvaltning. Men jeg tror denne trenden må ta utgangspunkt i brukeren og det utenfor perspektivet. Ikke nødvendigvis komme med tjenestedesign, men det traff oss veldig med sosiale medier. At ikke vi kan være ekspertene, for det noen der ute som faktisk vet bedre, som sitter midt inne i det, og som sitter med kunnskapen, og kanskje vært akkurat der det smalt, og kan fortelle den historien. Det traff oss jo veldig 22. juli. Så det må ikke lenger kunne sitte og være ekspert og holde på informasjonen og vite at det vi som eier sannheten. Det ser vi nå på en måte ringvirkningene av også i det å tenke, det jo brukeren som bestemmer uansett, det brukeren der ute som kan fortelle alle andre hva de synes. Omdømmet vårt jo like viktig som for business, ikke sant? Men jeg tror det perspektivendringen som kom med nye kommunikasjonskanaler og sosiale medier helt åpenbart viktig.
Carl?
My name is Carl Stormer. I run my own consulting firm and I have a background as an entrepreneur of service industries in the United States and in Norway. And I'm listening to you, insurance company and government, and I'm thinking you guys are all business, and you, at least for insurance, it's ripe for innovation. And this brings, it's kind of a follow-up question from the previous question, which is how can you, as service design providers, help entrepreneurs kill off old incumbent businesses?
Would you like to answer, Kim?
No, it's to you. It's to
okay.
Well, just a story around it, because when I first met Lavrans, he actually did that. He was, or LiveWork was asked to design up the insurance company of the future. And so they did. Brilliant piece of work, which I have in my drawer. And that I tried to show around people at Gjensidige and are dead frightened of letting out, because it's a brilliant idea. But we can't manage to do it because we're an old brand. We're not doing the disruption. So I know that they can.
And you can't see it.
I don't think I have a brilliant answer to you. Hopefully things like the book might be the best thing we can do.
Lavrans, we've done it before. So our business model isn't necessarily right for what you're asking, but we did a piece of work for Sony Ericsson that Lavrans has been talking about. Again, it's probably 10 years old, where we showed them the kind of the iCloud universe that would be the right service platform for a manufacturer of electronics to have, and they put it in a drawer or, you know, forgot about it. We've kind of, so I think we know we can do it. It's kind of who hires us, and in a different guise, we should have started up a whole load of businesses rather than run a consulting firm.
The really positive thing, I think, for instance, the book and the publishing, I think there's a whole new generation out there of people who are starting new businesses. And they have this thinking much more in their lifeblood than our generation. Airbnb is founded by 2 designers, yeah? So there's something happening there that's incredibly inspiring, and we're seeing it also now when we're hiring people straight out of school. They are incredibly productive and innovative. We're a bit embarrassed, you know, just to see how good they are. So I think in some way, sharing the insights with the people that are starting up, young people that are starting up new companies today, it's probably the most efficient approach.
I just had a comment to the previous question. The kind of equivalent to design thinking is lean startup, not only for startups, but actually for big business as well. And remembering Eric Rice mentioning that the biggest challenge growing was to keep the silo thought, even you were starting up a totally new idea, revolutionizing the world, and still keeping marketing departments, you know, business departments, and so on and so on. And if you can't really do that in a different way, you will end up at the same place. Maybe with a much better product, but you're still in the same place. So and also that is regarding existing organizations, that you kind of, maybe not to tear down all the silos, but you need to throw cross-functional teams to any given big challenge. And then we'll actually get innovation and services that hasn't been thought of before.
Jannike, how long do you think we should continue?
Well, we can buy the book until 5, but there will be wine and tapas for longer than that. So maybe 10 more minutes or 5 more minutes? Yeah. Is okay?
Yeah. So for those who have questions that are kind of concluding in their nature.
Well, that's a tough challenge. I'm Maja Arnestad. I'm a consultant. I've been working with innovation and research, particularly related to ICT, and with increasing participation of designers of all kinds, service designers and others. And just as an introductory comment, I would say somebody mentioned the enthusiasm, which I've noticed too in involving designers in projects, because it tends to draw or focus the attention on not just user participation, but on solutions, instead of the blame game and shareholder focus that you normally get when you're looking for problems instead of solutions. And most of our education, other education, you get a long course in how to find problems and how to play the blame game. So that's one of the elements, and I think in the creating a different spirit when you involve designers. But my question is, well, mainly related to the use of service design in the public sector, because there is one fundamental and very difficult element in using the same kind of model where you have, say, business, customer, and organization. The organization part is actually the most similar when you come to the public sector. The customer has not just, as you mentioned, roles on different levels, like final end user of an organization, but it's also a voter. It's also a political participant. And the business side is politics. So it's a much tougher game. And also you have very few giant multinational corporations in politics, fortunately, but that means also that the challenge of how to play the game of politics is quite different from how to play the game of business. And my last question is about involving other disciplines, it was, Tor mentioned economics were more involvement in, of psychologists, particularly in this behavioral economics, nudging you mentioned. And from the design side, I've been asking to see, or I would like to see more involvement with social anthropology. I think they have, as a university research discipline, a lot of, let's say, more fundamental insights that would match very well with design thinking and would give some more depth and perspective that would just take the design, let's say, education and research several steps forward.
I agree.
And I can say that about the politics. The problem maybe is that bureaucrats, they don't always, at least, speak to the end user, but the politics always do. So they go across over the bureaucracy. So we have to speak to the one the politics talk to.
Stereo.
Stereo.
Can I raise one challenge that hasn't come up in the discussion? I think you were alluding to it a little bit about the new companies, the new firms. One of the most exciting things that happened over the last 5-7 years is the new platform companies, where the totally rock old companies, I mean, from the bottom up, because they have transaction costs that are significantly lower. They're just doing business in a very different and more efficient way, which sends shock to the established companies. So that's going to be like an incentive for change, just meant to survive. And a lot of them are going to go bankrupt. But the wonderful thing about these companies is that they can scale up much more effectively than traditional companies. So they can go from 1 customer to 1 million customers over the night. That gives me hope for smaller companies. If you look at Airbnb, 2,400 companies worldwide. Uber, 5 people in San Francisco. And they're worth more than Ford, GM, and Honda together. Instagram. Exactly. So there's something to the new business models that we need to keep in mind. And also that forces us to think about design thinking or in service design in a different context. Because now you have technology as the driver for service provision. And that is not down to bottles or shapes or colors. It's down to how do the technology function together with other people and how can you make that, that interaction. And that is one thing. And another one, I mean, I'm really struggling with intellectually, and I haven't seen it happen. And I think it's one of the Achilles tendons that we have in the industry of service design and design thinking. How do you scale design from one function to an entire organization? I mean, like the primary example, like in the Oslo University Hospital with the breast cancer, that is, in all respect, one function. But I'm the CEO of a university hospital. How do I scale it up to the entire institution? I don't think you guys have the answer. I don't have it either.
There's some interesting things happening in the UK with government digital services, which was the team that were designing services, now become a kind of almost a standards and oversight office. And the head of design there is talking about kind of recruiting for, what's the cliche? It's like recruiting for attitude rather than skill set, and looking for young people in public services who basically have the attitude to be able to think and do this way, who will be, because there's been a kind of, to your point earlier, there's been this challenge out there for a while that Hillary Cotton said of, I need 10,000 service designers, and where are they all going to come from? But maybe they're not going to come from design school. Maybe it's, because I don't believe service design is a designer's. There is no such thing as a service designer. It's an activity that's done by teams of people. So that I think there will need to be creative solutions to that problem.
But it could be like a venue for the field as such to migrate into organizational thinking. Simon Clutworthy at AHO used the word experience-based organizations. The first time I heard it, I was like, wow, that was a mouthful. But there's something to it. How can design thinking and service designers take their expertise into organizational design and organizational behavior? That would be a challenge. Because we need to scale it. We can solve micro issues down here, but we need to scale it up to organizations. How do you make academia student-oriented? God forbid.
Well, I think that gave me the perfect way to close the discussion session of today. And of course, writing a book is then a very important way to be able to scale that kind of knowledge. And I'm sure your executive students would love to read it and train to be able to do it. If I can have the projector quickly.
No.
No. First of all, thank you all for coming and sharing the event of this book with us. If you want to scale your experience, there are some things you can use. On top is a web URL that's got a lot of content related to today that you can pass around, plus Twitter, etc., and where you can buy the books. So, for me, before you, I would like to thank Ben for coming all the way to London, for Kim for sharing your insights, for Tor from coming all the way from Bergen to do this and then going back.
Without passport.
Yeah, and for Sissel to represent 40% of Norwegian value creation today. And I would also like to give a particular thank you to Jannike, who, as always, flawlessly arranges everything.
And I would like to thank Lavrans as the moderator.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Det litt snacks, så vi